Hi, this session is titled From Consumers to Builders, SaaS in the Enterprise. In this session, we'll be learning about the growth of SaaS, learn about some common consumption and usage patterns that are driving success, explore how SaaS is being used as a digital transformation mechanism in the enterprise, and learn about some AWS frameworks and programs that can help your enterprise leverage the value of SaaS. My name is Tom de Grice. I'm a business architect in a team called the AWS SaaS Factory. We are a global team that produces SaaS thought leadership, builds reference architectures and frameworks, and engages with customers to help them solve challenges around SaaS. Now, my team and I talk to hundreds of companies building SaaS, and we're noticing some really interesting trends that we wanted to share here. Let's start with the first half of the title, Consuming SaaS. One of the key aspects of SaaS in the enterprise is that it's really changing how enterprise leverage software and, in fact, their entire relationship with the cloud. Originally, of course, people ran software on their own data centers on-premise, and they broadly ran software as one of two buckets: unique or core applications, which is code or IP owned by the company, and commercial off-the-shelf software or COTS that they've licensed from others. And this model had challenges in a couple of domains. From an infrastructure perspective, it's not efficient due to operational overhead and economies of scale and so on. And from a software perspective, updates were slow and costs were often linked to auditable licenses that's not really the value provided by the software. And if you're looking to run an efficient, tight ship, the main question is, this is my core business. Do I commit resources to management activities, or do I focus on generating unique value for my company? Somebody else should do that heavy lifting for me. And so enterprise moved their software workloads to the AWS cloud. And this offered significant savings from an infrastructure perspective due to economy of scale, management tooling, reliability, scalability, and consumption-based pricing. So far, so good. And the next natural step is to use that same mentality. What is my core business? Where do I add unique value to my customers? To look at the software layer itself. Can someone else run and manage this environment for me, but still give me the outcomes my customers need? And as a result, the software as a service model where the COTS provider runs and manages the software and delivers it as an experience to the company that consumes it. The enterprise can ruthlessly focus on that unique core software or IP that adds competitive advantage. And in fact, whereas previously we saw this two-hop approach, a common pattern we're now seeing is only moving core software into the cloud, and for any COTS software to be moved directly from an on-premise to a SaaS powered by AWS immediately as part of any move to cloud transformation effort. Let's quickly look at some of the other advantages to the SaaS approach. Well, firstly, SaaS offers more agility, the ability to scale up and down depending on need, anytime, anywhere there's a browser or new offices, markets, or employees. Costs are associated with actual consumption per user or per transaction. SaaS should be clearly aligned to the value the business gets out of it. From a customer experience perspective, SaaS means delivery of new features and releases to their employees far quicker, rather than waiting for ugly rollout schedules. And if they were using best practice SaaS vendors, they could assume a stream of innovation in terms of new features and functions that could add competitive advantage to their teams. If they're using them for customer-facing purposes, SaaS can also enable transformation. It can allow them to grow rapidly into new markets or segments as a digital business, experimenting or testing new processes with real-time feedback. And SaaS can also deliver efficiency. The business can spend proportionally more time on managing unique core applications or helping the legacy environments to move to SaaS quicker. And all of this SaaS value can be procured, delivered, and managed via the AWS Marketplace over to the SaaS consumer. And this value is proving incredibly powerful for enterprises. In the short term, to the end of FY22, IDC are estimating that over 80% of enterprises, those in the orange space here, are planning to increase their spend on SaaS. Just under 20%, that in the purple, are planning to stay the same or decrease. So clearly these companies are getting outcome from and seeking further value via more SaaS adoption. It's in the long term that you can really see the enterprise movement towards the value of SaaS. IDC again predicting that whilst only 30% of companies are procuring software as SaaS in 2022, Around 80% of enterprise software spend by 2030 will be on SaaS. That's tremendous growth in the adoption of SaaS, representing at least 350 billion of software today, with up to $1 trillion by 2030. One of the key reasons for this broad adoption of SaaS is that a number of the legacy blockers have now been solved. For example, in the integration of software, how to uncouple dependent applications and get new software talking to each other. Security, can I trust this SaaS provider? What will they do with my company or my customers' data? And the customer experience, how can I ensure the latency, resiliency, scalability and connectivity of the service delivers that experience that my users need? It can be useful to think of AWS a bit like a fabric that can help you to overcome these issues and get you the value of SaaS quicker. The first example could be if you just wanted to consume an application that you would either consume natively or sync data into or out of other applications. AWS has a unique service called AppFlow that's got many of the world's major SaaS providers like SAP, Salesforce, Stripe, Facebook Ads, ServiceNow as fully managed integrations that allow you to transfer and sync data at scale inside of AWS. Even further, setting up a shared data lake along with a private link endpoint allows you to keep control and manage data from those providers for further activities like AI machine learning from those sources. A second example here is if you wanted to manage some way of getting events from SaaS providers, maybe as part of a cause and effect workflow. For example, using ANZ company Whisper here, if a part of a government issues a bushfire alert, they can issue communications to millions of people at scale via Amazon EventBridge. And again, using a shared data lake and analytics structure, using perhaps Amazon Athena, you could use EventBridge to schedule, transform, and issue those workflows back out to those SaaS providers. And a third way could be if you wanted to send batch or real-time data for processing to a SaaS provider, you can easily use a streaming service like Amazon Kinesis, along with AWS Key Management Service for additional security. Now, these are just 3 high-level examples on how to use some AWS services to consume SaaS and overcome some of those legacy blockers. And if you're interested in more details around these, there was a specific session in the previous reInvent that talks to this a bit more. See the reference here. So here's a great example of an ANZ enterprise using SaaS to create value for its end customers. Westpac took a deliberate decision to create a new digital banking as a service platform through which they can create better customer experiences. Their banking platform as a service strategy is underpinned by a UK ISV called 10x for core banking, such as credit cards, accounts, and transactions. And they've also used ANZ company Frankie One to be trusted by the bank to create, connect, and orchestrate all of Westpac's banking as a service identity infrastructure, including things like onboarding of other third-party financial SaaS providers. Now, through this combination, Westpac are able to deliver value add to their customers extremely quickly, such as popular pay later services provider Afterpay. In fact, Westpac say that they are integrating over 30 different technology providers in this manner. And this capability provides tremendous agility and speed to market. So rather than Westpac having to build all of these capabilities themselves, this SaaS structure even offers Westpac to push their services outwards, such as transaction and savings accounts to other financial organizations. And as a result, Westpac won the Best Finance Project of the Year in 2022 by the IT News. They said at the time that the plug-and-play nature of the banking as a service platform meant Westpac were future-ready, able to capture the constant innovation of technology partners whilst keeping pace with the changing consumer landscape. Another really interesting aspect of the Westpac example is it's not just about consuming. It provides a real example of the second half of our title, building SaaS. The BPaaS structure enables Westpac to offer their services outwards, such as transaction and savings accounts, to other financial organizations such as Society One. Society One did not want to build a transactional infrastructure or integrate to international payment clearinghouses and so on. They know that they can make better use of resources and be more efficient in reaching new markets by leveraging the Westpac core software. So Westpac have become a builder and a provider of SaaS to other companies. Let's explore this second half a little bit further. Why are enterprises looking to build out SaaS? Well, it's interesting to take a step back and have a look more broadly. These are the global enterprise priorities as surveyed by Gartner. And the most highly named priorities are coloured in here. Growth in NAMA and EMEA, customer experience, digital transformation, cost optimization and technology modernization, particularly in APAC, are the trends that are highlighted in colour here. And it's clear that consuming SaaS can deliver many of these priorities. But we're also increasingly seeing more companies double down and drive further acceleration in these areas by building SaaS as well. That is, intentionally looking to make their core software available for consumption as a SaaS by other companies. For example, as a builder, SaaS can deliver better customer experience, becoming a more customer-centric organization using that SaaS mindset to design the next generation of services. Building SaaS can help to cost optimize. The more transactions that can be executed via your SaaS, if it's designed correctly, the cheaper the unit economics per transaction should get. Building a new SaaS is a very deliberate way of designing a technology modernization pathway that reduces long-term risk on internal legacy systems. And by moving physical and manual processes to digital or online formats, you can improve speed, process and outcomes, and drive overall digital transformation in the enterprise as well. And by creating new revenue opportunities in existing or new markets, building SaaS can deliver growth for an enterprise. Specifically, growth is an area that SaaS is clearly delivering on. This chart from SaaS Capital shows revenue performance of stock market listed SaaS companies in the United States. The green line versus the blue line of NASDAQ listed companies versus the white line of S&P 500 or the more traditional companies. And it shows that SaaS has had a consistently better revenue growth performance over time than technology companies or traditional industries. It's also worth noting that the tangible effect of agility that SaaS provides during COVID, the cloud environments on which the SaaS providers are built, allowed them to scale up to capture huge amounts of additional revenue and then scale back down again once the pandemic was more under control. COVID impact aside, the long-term SaaS revenue performance is about 3 times the performance of non-technology companies in those share markets. And for business executives looking for share price growth, building a SaaS is a real pathway to realizing valuation. And we're seeing this interest in SaaS across many verticals. Clearly, software companies still dominate building SaaS, but increasingly we're seeing inquiries from all sorts of industry verticals into our team in the AWS SaaS Factory. I particularly find it interesting that those industries who are the most highly regulated in financial and healthcare are now 2 of the top verticals looking to build SaaS on AWS. And it just shows the security and compliance aspects that you can look towards the cloud to help deliver on their behalf. So increasingly, I think we will see enterprises look to commercialize that IP and drive growth through offloading their commercial off-the-shelf software to SaaS providers and consuming it back as SaaS within reason, and turning as much of their core software as possible into a SaaS solution themselves. AWS's job is to provide tools to improve the reliability and efficiency of that interchange and reduce the friction and risk around it. Because there's a couple of challenges involved with this, and let me just highlight a couple here. Many companies, especially large enterprises, know what their customers want, so they can often build the right thing, even if they have to tweak it for a SaaS delivery model. They have great technical teams and build amazing technical software, so they often can build the thing right as well from an operational perspective. But we at SaaS Factory often encounter a gap in the operate aspect of a SaaS mindset. Most enterprises have not operated as a SaaS before. So questions like, how do I maintain SLAs and uptime? How do I scale and reduce rapidly? How do I build, measure, and iterate based on rapid customer feedback loops? And finally, servicing the SaaS customer is almost always something that has to be built from the ground up. How does the enterprise balance sales, customer success, and support? How do they closely couple pricing with the value of the product such that it's a win-win for both sides and delivers strong customer lifetime value that we expect from a SaaS model? So building out the SaaS mindset across all these components is often an unknown minefield in front of enterprises pursuing SaaS. The second big challenge is the overall business transformation. Now, this is a simple model that we often refer to called eating the fish by the Technology Services Industry Association, or TRSIA. It describes the financial impact for any company undergoing a SaaS build transformation. As new SaaS is developed, costs rise due to increased developer or marketing spend, training staff, or migrating or onboarding customers, whilst revenues might drop as the focus is taken away from existing offerings, or the impact of consumption-based pricing might impact cash flow. So I really see this as our job, AWS and the builders together, to minimize the time taken to execute a transformation and reduce the overall impact between cost and revenue, such as the project has a great ROI for the company and delivers on the inflection point as shown here. In essence, moving from a relatively static revenue and cost line to constantly improving unit economics when the transformation is up to speed. So here's a few ways that AWS can help with some of these challenges. AWS has programs for SaaS builders like my team, AWS SaaS Factory. We've helped companies like Stacks, based down in Melbourne, to bring together their sales, customer success, engineering, and product teams. And that enabled them to go ahead and execute and experiment at a faster speed. We bring these learnings together from over 250 SaaS projects from around the world in how businesses can learn, accelerate, and succeed with SaaS. So my team has personally supported over 75 new SaaS product launches over the last few years. Our team has global reach, and the organizations we work with range from SMB right up to enterprise across all industry verticals, including financial services, telecommunications, manufacturing, security, life sciences, oil and gas, and more. Here in Asia Pacific, we've helped companies like BeamIT, Contemi, Centaur, Samsung SDS, LendingCart, and many, many more. We take all that experience and customer feedback and we bring it back into the core of AWS to help build the next generation of native AWS solutions. That's specifically our intention when we create the broadest and deepest set of services for people building or consuming SaaS applications. Whether security, integrations, databases, monitoring and analytics, modern serverless technologies, there's many, many options inside AWS to help deliver that SaaS promise for your end users. Remember that a critical component of success for a SaaS provider is rapid delivery of new solutions and features. It's not enough to develop a SaaS solution that has the features the market demands. Your speed to market in launching that product is critical, as is the agility with which you can innovate, the time to value that you can deliver to your customers. Partnering with a cloud platform that is focused on SaaS and has services ready to enable the functionality and scale that SaaS demands is critical. And many of the core requirements of a SaaS platform, like you see here, have excellent fits within the services provided by AWS today. SaaS Factory has also pre-built some code architectures that anyone can use to get going with a SaaS model quicker than ever before. These architectures are essentially pre-packaged code templates that launch a bundle of AWS services into a best practice SaaS environment. As they're open source, you can edit and configure right down to the code level, strip parts out, or add your own customizations as much as you like. Elastic Kubernetes Service, or EKS for SaaS, looks at building out a Kubernetes container environment on AWS. Serverless SaaS that focuses on using AWS Lambda and microservices to build a native cloud environment from the ground up. And SaaS Boost, our most mature and popular framework that sets up a fully orchestrated SaaS environment using native AWS container and microservices, which provides a reliable and easy migration path for traditional applications to begin operating a SaaS on AWS environment in hours rather than months. Just to note, while all these frameworks are open source, they all launch various AWS services to set up, run, and manage the environments, such as compute, storage, database, and analytics, all stitched together by SaaS Factory. Now, these do incur charges outside the normal free tiers for those products. But all three of these frameworks can be found for free on the AWS SaaS Factory webpage, and there'll be links at the end of the presentation to that. Just to highlight one of these in AWS SaaS Boost that really aligns to our theme of focusing on your core unique value. When designing something as a service, every SaaS has to build out a version of these key orange components, such as DevOps and provisioning, onboarding, or a billing system. To achieve rapid time to value for your customers, there needs to be consideration around these factors and creating a frictionless experience around getting customers to use your service. Metering has to be built out to ensure that you're charging them for what they're actually using, preferably linked to the business value that you're providing them. Surrounding all of this, teams might not have especially deep AWS technical skills in all the products they need, or SaaS business skills in-house. Or even if they do, there might be brand new AWS services or patterns unique to SaaS that their in-house teams have never seen before. And this tends to slow SaaS launches down. SaaS Boost allows anyone to bring their legacy applications to AWS, implement the basics of what's needed to operate as a SaaS, and really accelerates the initial build and launch process. Feedback on this framework has been that it can save up to 70% of the time to develop an offering. And as we've seen from one of our early adopters in Magic Software in New Zealand, they wrote, whilst their initial strategy was to lift and shift, SaaS Boost allowed them to move to a SaaS delivery model in months instead of years. So I'd highly encourage you to talk to us or our SaaS competency partners about AWS SaaS Boost if you're considering building out a new SaaS or moving a legacy application into a SaaS offering. There is one last variation on the SaaS for Enterprises theme that I want to share here. So far, we've discussed SaaS in the context of consuming or building software. But there's an interesting approach that we are getting a lot of interest from more traditional industries too, using SaaS principles as a means to enable platform economics. So these are companies that are not necessarily software companies, but want to leverage parts of operating and thinking like a SaaS company to get unit economics, say on a per transaction or per event, and allowing more external parties and even competitors to access and use your company's assets, whether physical or digital. In platform economics, every incremental usage should enable a better return on your asset. And here's a couple of examples. We're working with healthcare companies to move away from one-off machinery sales to develop SaaS revenue streams like AI, machine learning, imagery, provided by third parties built on top of their core machinery products. We've worked with manufacturing companies to enable others to use their proprietary CAD files and book construction time in their factories. That minimizes idle time on the shop floor and also enables them to get more real-time intelligence about customer demands. And we're currently working with a large agricultural concern on a project to enable access to central grain silos and logistics capabilities by small independent farmers to ensure they're optimized without needing to build a people-centric sales or marketing team. Platform economics operate using the principles of SaaS, being more customer-centric, being agile and constantly iterating, and delivering with a SaaS experience to the end customer. Pay-as-you-go, consumption pricing, frictionless onboarding with data-driven insights, scalability and reliability provided by the cloud. And while AWS are helping a lot of companies to execute in this manner, probably the best reference for the value of SaaS principles enabling platform economics is Amazon itself. This is exactly the same business model that underpins Amazon Marketplace e-commerce offering. Millions of suppliers living alongside Amazon's own inventory to provide choice and low pricing. It's why anyone can use Fulfillment by Amazon, the logistics network, regardless of whether they sell on Marketplace or not. And even AWS itself, spun out of Amazon's infrastructure team, operates using SaaS principles that then delivers platform economics. We operate using a SaaS mindset, customer centricity, agility, and constant iteration to deliver better experiences. And we deliver with a low-friction SaaS front-end experience. Pay-as-you-go, consumption pricing, frictionless onboarding, insights, scalability, and reliability provided by the cloud. And all of those things enable consumers to focus on unique core value. So if operating more like Amazon and using SaaS principles is something you feel would be an interesting conversation for your enterprise, come and talk to us. So let's bring it all together and summarize. We've seen the pace at which the world is moving to SaaS. Enterprises are looking for ways to drive growth, revenue, digital transformation, customer experiences, and cost optimization. They're aggressively moving their commercial off-the-shelf software outwards to SaaS providers, and instead focusing on their core applications that offer unique IP and value. They're in turn starting to build this core into SaaS that they can get transformational benefits from. We also explored a couple of challenges and some ways that AWS can help with programs like SaaS Factory, SaaS Reference Architectures, and even AWS Marketplace itself. I just wanted to reinforce the opportunity and sense of urgency in front of us for both consumers and builders as it relates to SaaS. It really is a huge shift in the enterprise relationship with the cloud and how they can deliver more value to their customers. In a SaaS world, speed really matters. In fact, a recent survey by Ernst & Young, moving to SaaS more quickly was the #1 thing that companies adopting SaaS, that's both consuming and building, wish they had done differently, suggested by 25% of all respondents. For SaaS, speed really matters. And having an experienced partner will help with this journey. We like to say there is no compression algorithm for experience. You simply can't learn certain lessons until you get to milestones in scale. And AWS is a product of that experience we've had over 2 decades, from lessons from our own growth and scale and moving our own businesses to the cloud, as well as helping hundreds of other SaaS providers to do the same. So the key call to action here, explore some of those reference materials based on our experience that we've made available. There's over 150 insightful articles on the SaaS Insights Hub, for example. Leverage those open source reference architectures and develop a SaaS up to 75% quicker. And finally, connect with us on or offline via webinars. Our SaaS Competency Partner Network and the ANZ providers are seen here, or reach out to your AWS account teams. There is also plenty of free SaaS digital courses on Skills Builder, along with over 600 other courses, labs and games, along with some premium paid options and AWS certificates. So thank you for your attention. As always, we appreciate feedback, so please fill in the survey for this session. We do read everyone. Good luck in your SaaS journey, whether consuming or building or both. Goodbye for now.